Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the sociology of race in the United States. And we're fortunate to have with us to talk about the sociology of race in the United States an eminent sociologist from Tennessee State University, Dr. EKSanford. And of course, Dr. Sanford has been with us on a number of occasions, and each time he brings us excellent information. And Dr. Sanford, let me welcome you to the show this morning, and to tell you how delighted we are to have you here this morning to deal with this topic of the sociology of race. Now, it might sound strange to talk about the sociology of race, but I felt that as a sociologist, you have all the information, academic information, and et cetera, so that we could sort of build the show around this kind of information. And I think that that will be quite informative in reference to what we're trying to do here. But before we get into that, let's have you to give audience some information in reference to your background, your education, and your experiences. I know you've been here on many occasions, and they've said it before, you've said it before, but there might be one person out there that might not know about you, yes, that we feel that it's important for that person to know about you. So give us some information in reference to your background, your education, and your experiences.
Well, thank you so much. And as you said, I am a professor of sociology at Tennessee State University. I guess I'll start from my latest all the way up to the present. I did my postdoc at the Pennsylvania State University in Penn State, and there I dealt with the elderly, intergenerational family studies, and inequalities that exist within the elderly population of the United States. Prior to that, I was at Howard University in Washington, D.C., where I did my doctorate degree on the homeless elderly, again looking at race differences as well as homelessness within the United States. But while there, I had some unique experiences at working with the national headquarters of the American Red Cross in HIV/AIDS education. We were the groundbreaking organization that started the whole issue of outreach for HIV/AIDS that was funded by the Centers for Disease Control and the United States Congress. Also, while there, I worked with the D.C. Superior Court. In that capacity, we dealt with mediation within the court system. I also worked with the American Association of Black Law Enforcement Executives, dealing with incarceration rates here in the United States and victims assistance. But I did my undergraduate degree at North Carolina Central University, as well as some studies at UNC in Chapel Hill and at the Institute for Social Research at the University of Michigan.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. And then one of my specialty areas in this particular has been in race and ethnic relations in medical sociology. And while at Howard University, they had an excellent program in Africana Studies and African American Studies, looking at a diaspora type of issue. And I did an external minor while working on a doctorate degree in that, which I think is very relevant for today's topic on looking at the sociology of race in America and how it has persisted from an earlier time to the present.
And so I think that we've got some excellent information, and you've got the best experience to really talk about the sociology of race in America. What would you say in reference to making a statement that would sort of bring into view your basic information that you're going to deliver to us today? Give us sort of a capsule of what you wish to bring to us this morning.
Absolutely. I think race, what I would like the viewing audience to understand, is a very complex issue, and it's totally ingrained in the very fabric of the American culture. And when I say culture, I'm talking about that complex whole that includes knowledge, traditions, values, and that's passed down from one generation to the next generation. So with that said, it's important to understand how race actually came about, how it was constructed here in America from 1619 to 2016. So I would like at the very outset to understand the complexity of it, because sometimes it gets so ingrained that we become so commonplace and it becomes something that we just think that is just
everybody
there.
know about it.
Everybody knows about it. Like a language, for an example. We were born in America, so we learned to speak the English language. And as a result of that, we were born in America, and with certain cultural traits that exist, those things are learned as well. So I think that's the point of departure of our discussion today, and to try to understand the complexity of it, because presently in 2016, we have a issue of people feeling that, well, that was back then and this is now. So I'm hoping today's discussion will bring us to bear on how we need to define it, understand some of the key terms that are very important in understanding race and racism in America, because you have to understand something before you can then understand how it's present.
Very good.
And if that understanding is misled or not understood, then we have a tendency to have a generality about it.
Very good. We're going to take a first commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. And so what I'll do, I'll just introduce the show again, and you do just as you did this time, just take it on.
Okay.
And I'm over here, you know.
All right.
And I'm trying not to put any information,
that's all right.
in your audio, and but I'm over here. You just see me moving.
Oh, I understand.
Shaking my head, whatever, you know. Well, that's excellent. Yeah, that's what we want to start doing. That gives us. And I'll just introduce the show again, and then turn it over to you. Thank you, and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Dr. EKSanford from Tennessee State University, who's giving us some sociological information in reference to race in the United States. Dr. Sanford, let's see if we can pick up where we left off during that first commercial break by giving you an opportunity to further elaborate in a real sense upon some of the things that you feel to be important dealing with the issue of race in the United States.
Well, thank you very much again. Dr. Higginbotham suggests that race is fundamentally a part of social structures here within the United States. In the last segment, I mentioned about the complexity of race because it is so ingrained in the fabric from 1619 to 2016. So what does that theoretical framework mean by fundamentally a part of social structures? If we think of the 10 major institutions that make up the society, such as family, such as economics, such as education, such as medicine, such as the government and politics, entertainment, mass media, law, all of those types of characteristics that make up the society, Higginbotham would suggest was ingrained in a very racist way toward African Americans and other ethnic groups in America, and that it still persists as we think about how culture is defined as something that is passed down from one generation to the next generation to the present time here in 2016 and ahead. Now, Alex de Tocqueville, a great French philosopher, came to America maybe 150 years or so after 1619. And what he found as he was traveling in horse and buggy throughout the South, these people of African descent that were enslaved. And as he looked at the very foundations of society, he said there's no way America could ever reach a democracy. Why? Because it was founded on slavery. So therefore, when we think in terms of it being so ingrained in our society, in order for us to make improvements on it, we must just understand that that's how this particular country and society was founded. Now, many people listening would say there's plenty of evidence that race relations has changed, and they're absolutely correct. You and I can remember when school segregation was very prevalent here in the United States. Some people might be able to look at a little age difference between us, but I was in a segregated type of a situation through the 8th grade. Many of the viewing audience might remember that. So the segregation took place, so we can see how there were certain improvements. We can look back at 244 years of enslavement in 1861 to 1865 with the Civil War, and after it ended, there was the Emancipation Proclamation. So 13th Amendment freed the slaves, the 14th Amendment, they gave a citizenship right, and the 15th Amendment gave the right to vote. Now, when we talk about Higginbotham's piece on it being so ingrained in the fabric, we're talking about 1866, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in 1865 was making the comment that people still do not have the fundamental right to vote in America. That's 100 years after the voting rights was given to slaves that were freed. So that's that notion of that. So we can see other possible improvements in race relations in America. The segregation is mentioned. We can see that we can drive any place from the East Coast to the West Coast, and if you want to get a place to live in, public accommodations are certainly free. You can speak and do anything that you want to, go into any store that you want to. We can even go as far as say now we actually have an African American president, and we can see representative on the Supreme Court, since that's such a topical issue. So there have been improvements. However, as we look at those improvements, we can also look at these disparities that I mentioned from my postdoc training through my PhD that are still very present, such as incarceration rates that you and I have talked about on this show many a times. Those disparities, if you look at Dr. McIntosh's piece, after slavery, that so many people of African descent were incarcerated and then sold out or given out to owners to make money. Presently, when you look at the incarceration rate, you still see a large amount and the highest percentage of African American males that are in prison. When you look back at an earlier time period in our history, you can see that people were fundamentally lynched and killed. Well, today you say, well, how does race is so much a part and ingrained in the very fabric?
Good.
When you see someone that may in that institution may have broken the law and someone is shot, that in the subconscious of that person, they still might shoot a person 14, 15 more times. Now, if you just think about, if you go hunting and if you shoot a deer or any animal, you might shoot them one time, as a good shot is done. You don't think about shooting them 15 more times. So we can see how something within the subconscious really is still present within our society as an indicator. So in sociology, we have to have a very clear definition of race. And race is fundamentally defined as viewing someone's attitudes and beliefs of someone's physical characteristics, such as skin pigmentation, hair texture, those things that are just obvious. And a notion of inferior and superior ideas